Good evening. It is Tuesday, August 16th, and this is this regular monthly school board meeting of Duluth ISD 709. So we're here at Duluth East High School, and we are here, and we will videotape and load it up to our YouTube for our community. We welcome the community that's here with us tonight. Again, we are going to be meeting at Duluth East's campus on our regular school board meetings for this school year. And then hopefully by next summer, we will be holding our school board meetings at our new district service building up on Rice Lake Road. So again, we welcome you. We're glad you're here. We're glad that the community that's here that's gonna watch us on YouTube as well. And so I turn to Clerk Oswald and ask for a roll call tonight.
And I'll just interject for anyone that may not know what a videotape is. It's recorded. We're dating ourselves.
Certainly.
Member Eater. Here. Member Kirby.
Here.
Member Lafleur. Here. Chair Lopal. Here. Member Oswald. Hey, I'm right here. Member Sadowski. Here. Member Samuel.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Here.
And then we have our finance representative, Simone Zunich, as present, and HR Director Severance. Here. And we have Board Secretary Paquette. Here. And our student reps, Soraya Crawford is excused, and Eileen Oss is on her way. And we have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And just for our community too, we have an agenda, and we're now on agenda item number 4. It's the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And then, board members, under the agenda, I would like to make a motion to add the classification description for facilities business manager. And we would place this under 9B on our agenda. I'm making the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a vote to approve adding the facilities business manager job description classification to our agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And then now we're gonna vote on the agenda as amended. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
And a second from member Sandholm? And all those in favor of approval of the agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to agenda item number 5, school and community recognition.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone.
Good
We are
evening.
setting up the computer because the individual that's going to be recognized is being pulled up right now.
Soraya, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Soraya.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
They're just saying hi to you.
Oh, hi, everyone.
We are glad that you were able to make the recognition. So again, good evening, everyone. Members of the board, Soraya Pentek is nominated for recognition by our very own Denfeld Student School Board Representative Soraya Crawford. This is what Soraya said in her nomination. Soraya Pentek is a staff member at Denfeld High School, and her position is Full Service Community School Site Coordinator. Soraya not only ensures that every student's voice is heard by school officials, but also works hard towards bringing true equity to Duluth Public Schools. She goes above and beyond her job description to provide what students need and giving them someone to confide in. Soraya has a child of her own, but everyone could argue that she is raising the students of Denville as well. Through all the hardships that she faces, she continues to work hard to break barriers in our school that genders learning. Soraya Pentek inspires me and so many others. Soraya, thank you for everything you do for all of the students of Denville. Congratulations on your recognition. Member of the
Is
board?
Soraya present right now?
No, she couldn't make it today.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
No problem. We still will allow members of the board to share something, or would you like to share anything, Soraya?
Would you like to share something?
Maybe something happened with the technology.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I was muted. And I just got done saying I'm a mess because we're driving from the East Coast, so I'm just been driving for 10 hours. But I was just gonna say that it always feels good to have a student recognize all the work that I'm doing, and as long as they know that everything I'm doing is for them and my work is child-centered, even without the recognition, it's always worth it. So thank you guys for bringing this to the back space.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Soraya. I think it's Soraya.
Soraya.
Nice. Nice to see you again. Denville's a great fit.
Thank you.
Is this where I hop off? Or you can stay on?
You can hop off. Have a good drive.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. So thanks to Soraya Crawford, our Denville student rep, for submitting the recognition for Soraya. We're going to move on then to item number 6. It's public comment. And so this is an opportunity for our community to come forward and to share questions, challenges, whatever we want to bring forward. But before we do that, I'm going to turn to Member Sandholm is going to read our civility, and then Clerk Oswald will read kind of the general guidelines for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Community vision and priorities for Duluth schools. We will build on our shared beliefs and values of the unity, high achievement, and responsible use of resources to create Duluth public schools and classrooms that are safe, supportive, and inclusive. We will work to inspire every student to achieve their potential and prepare students to lead productive, fulfilling lives as citizens of Duluth and the wider world. 11 tools of civility. The school board recognizes 11 tools of civility that will provide increased opportunities for civil discourse in order to find positive resolutions to the issues that face our community. These tools include pay attention, listen, be inclusive, don't gossip, show respect, be agreeable, apologize, give constructive criticism, take responsibility, be honest and care for others, show your evidence, share your reasoning.
Thank you. And that's really taken from the Speak Your Piece, the Civility Project that was developed here in Duluth. And then Clerk Oswald will also just go over some general guidelines.
Even though we have a pro that commenting at the table, I still will tell you how to do it and ask you nicely. Public comment information to know when you sign up to speak at board meetings. Persons wishing to address the school board must sign in prior to the meeting, listing their name, address, and the matter on which you will speak. If you have any handouts for the board, please give them to the school board secretary or administrative assistant or fabulous person in the back of the room. Each person addressing the board will have 3 minutes total. Persons addressing the board may not merge their time in order to allow one person to speak for more than 3 minutes. When speaking, use of names or any information that identifies a specific individual is legally prohibited, and you will be asked to end your comments. The clerk of the board, me, will start the stoplight timer that's right there at the start of each person's time, barring I accidentally forget, which happens on occasion. A green means go, yellow means wrap it up, and red means please stop. When the red light comes on, the chair will gavel to signal you to stop. Persons addressing the board shall confine their comments to matters pertaining to the agenda or relevant to matters of administrative concern. And in the interest of respect for each public comment speaker, please hold any commentary during the speaker's time until they are finished.
Thank you, Clerk Oswald. And those are guidelines and the civility message that we share with our community, and we encourage our community to come forward to board meetings and sign up to speak. It's an opportunity to hear your voice and your concerns and your, what's on your mind. So we really want public comment. So our first speaker is Betty Green.
Good evening, Superintendent Agus, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, Chair Lopald, and members of the school board. My name is Betty Green. The district has acknowledged that there have been multiple realities for students' experience with school resource officers. I ask that when you consider a new SRO contract, you make sure it includes protections for students who have in the past and may in the future experience negative interactions with police officers. Please take the time needed to craft the contract. If the SRO contract covers more than 1 year, please build in ways to evaluate the program and make adjustments as they are needed so that students are not negatively impacted. Thank you.
And that's our only public comment tonight, board. Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. Next on our agenda is number 7. It is reading communications and petitions. And tonight, board members, I just want to share with you that the school board and the district leaders got a thank you note from the Moms Support Action for Gun Control. I know I didn't get that title exactly right. And so just sharing that was sent to us. It was thanking us for the resolution, thanking us for the support that we've shown, both by school board and our administration, and it was signed by a number of the moms in that organization. So that was under reading, communications, and petitions this month. That brings us to number 8, report of the superintendent, so I'll turn it over to Superintendent Magus.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I will share my screen in just a moment, but we always start with our student reports, so Al, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I first want to apologize for being late. I went to Dunfeld by accident, out of habit, I guess. So this month, students are soaking up the last of the summer. Many fall sports are starting up, including volleyball, cross country, and football. Volleyball captains had their captains practices last week, and tryouts were yesterday and today. I believe they find out any minute now whether or not they made or what teams they made. The cross country season started this month, and their first meet is the 25th of August. Girls tennis started this Monday, and their first match is Saturday the 20th. Hound Pack is having their training for the leaders on the 28th, and then their freshman orientation is the 31st. And upperclassmen who are involved are excited to hopefully get the new class inspired for the school year. There's a college application help day at East on the 23rd for seniors to help to get help with writing essays and preparing for the application process. Jumpstart is on the 24th, and the exec board will be giving new students tours and selling apparel. Many clubs are excited to be tabling there and hopes to increase interest and participation in various endeavors. The exec board is hard at work on welcome back festivities, with the assembly, tailgate, game, and dance all being on Friday the 9th, the first Friday of school. We are really happy and excited to welcome back the school and hopefully inspire more school spirit right off the bat this year. Association is having their retreat from the 18th to the 19th, an experience to bond, build teamwork skills, and start on planning homecoming in October. And Exec and Association are excited about collaborating more this year than we have in the past. Throughout the summer, though the summer is coming to an end, many students of all grades are excited for a routine of school and the new year ahead. So that's all I have.
I do have Soraya's student report, if you want me to share that.
That'd be great.
So Soraya says, good evening, everyone. I apologize for not being able to attend any of the summer school board meetings, but I am excited to see all of your beautiful faces at the next school board meeting, and until then, I hope you remain well. Unfortunately, I don't have much to report on, but once the school year starts up, these reports will be better. So first of all, she reports that to begin, Denfeld had our fall preseason sports meeting where all fall athletes were informed on tryouts, first practice, and eligibility. And like Eiley stated, Soraya tells us that Denfeld's fall sports practices, along with debate and speech is practicing already, and so is dance line and cheer, along with our volleyball, football, cross country, and tennis teams. Also, Denfeld's freshman orientation is September 1st, and this is where students will be introduced to school officials and learn more about how their time at Denfeld will be spent. And then our Black Student Association had their first board meeting on August 1st, and they discussed their upcoming plans for the school year. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to meeting with all of you soon.
That's great. Thank you both.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard to follow the student reports, but with my superintendent report, because you all do such a nice job of connecting us to why we're really here and what really matters to us, so thanks. But with my report tonight, I have a few different topics. Wanted to give a safe learning plan update, which actually I think will be quite brief compared to previous years when it would be multiple meetings. Another brief input on where we're at with our strategic planning process, an update on tribal consultation that we conducted this afternoon, an update on the school resource officer contract, as well as a update on our Unity in the Community back to school celebration. And if we have time at the end, I'll throw in pork chop and purchase agreement. And for those of you who were at the previous meeting we had at the committee of the whole related to traffic at Lowell, you all know what a pork chop is. It's not that tasty. But our safe learning plan. You may have noted that the Center for Disease Control changed their COVID guidelines late last week, and with the guidelines, there were some changes. They said that if you're exposed to COVID-19, it's now strongly recommended that you wear a high-quality mask and get tested on day 5, regardless of vaccination. They're also saying that no quarantine is necessary unless symptoms come forward. Basically, that goes for household contacts as well, so you're not quarantined if you're in a household. That's the CDC guidelines. But because of our safety factors and things that we are considering as a school district, the district is going to require those who test positive for COVID-19, regardless of vaccination status, to isolate for 5 days, and they can return on day 6. So we're keeping that 5-day isolation for the time being. And then we're having people wear a well-fitted mask at that point. So those are, that's if symptoms have improved. So basically, we are keeping our masking and isolation for people who develop COVID-19 rather than just have people come to work with COVID-19. You can read about all the new updates and protocols in the Safe Learning Plan that's linked within. So there's updates there. We also received from MASA and there's a group called the Donovan Group that does communications work with MASA, and they produced a template letter for monkeypox. So we're ready with our next health emergency letter if need be, if there are outbreaks or concerns with monkeypox, which we do want to take seriously. And it's well crafted. We noticed that there were some biases that were in some of the World Health Organization communications that came out early that weren't very sensitive, but the communication we have is more sensitive than that. Any questions on our safe learning plan?
I have a question. Will the teachers that still have to quarantine for 5 days continue to receive their 3 hours of pay each day?
We haven't discussed that in great detail, but that would be my assumption that they would receive the 3 hours of pay if they're quarantined because they're helping. But we'd have to make sure that that's the case. Teresa, I can't see, is that your intention?
Yeah, I would expect that we would continue it as it was practiced last school year.
I do want to note as well that I know that caused frustration that it wasn't full payment of the time, but it was more generous than I want to say 70% of the school districts in the state. So it was kind of the middle ground that middle to generous ground that we're hoping for. As far as our school resource officer contract status, our team has been working very closely with the Duluth Police Department on the renewal of the SRO contract. All of the contract language changes that were suggested to the department based on community engagement sessions have been incorporated into the exhibit. And so we're very pleased that the content and philosophical changes reflect our shared desire to reduce disproportionate outcomes for historically underserved populations. So I think it is important that as we move forward that we continue to monitor that on a regular basis so that we are making sure that things are executed in the manner desired. However, the contract details are still being finalized. They had a couple of people out last week. We were hoping to get it on this agenda so that people could see it and have it, but they had a couple of people out that were critical to finalizing the contract, and we look forward to bringing it to the board for a vote in the near future. Likely, what I'd hope is that maybe we could during the first committee of the whole, if we could add maybe a special board meeting to approve that and other things if need be, as well as people who are new on contract, like our new Myers-Wilkins recommendation for principal. But they have said that no matter what, they're planning to begin with this in the schools this fall.
Can I just reiterate too, so I think it's important for our community to just, Superintendent Vegas, you touched on it, but the things that were in the language which were brought forward in this 2-year study, things like increased relationship building with students, participation in the implicit bias training that our staff goes through, and also trauma-informed practices was something in the language, and that, again, you had reiterated, and again, I think even our speaker tonight, a regular review of data and with school leaders. So those were the language items I think I took away from earlier meetings with us. So just kind of sharing that with our community, that those, when we say that they agree to the language items, I just kind of want to share at least those 4. There might be more.
And Mr. Bonds, you've been closer to that work, and is there anything else that you would add related to the summary of language changes that we asked for?
Just a slight correction.
Okay.
There were a couple items that could not be agreed to, but all of the more substantive requests were provided and specifically coverage during absences, because they too are short when it comes to number of officers, that they couldn't agree to making sure that there was an officer present in some situations during absences. So they couldn't agree to that kind of, they couldn't come to an agreement about that one.
Are we gonna be provided with a copy of the contract prior to the meeting?
Yes.
To make sure that we can process that entirely? Because I believe this is a really sensitive community issue, and we wanna make sure that we all give it the attention it deserves.
We'll make sure it's sent well in advance.
Thank you.
follow-up question on the SROs and I think that I saw in the recommendations that they would review their citation data and other data regularly, and that they've committed to getting that to us on a regular basis. Is that accurate as well? And if so, do we know how frequently, like quarterly, bi-monthly?
When we're deciding,
Still
we're
deciding
determining that as a team,
Okay.
it will definitely be at least quarterly, if not bi-monthly.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your work on this. Mr. Ross,
Thank you.
on the board. Our strategic planning update. You've seen this before, but our process was paused through the summer. But moving on to our fall, we have a lot going on, and my link is not going to come up there, but I just wanted to go through some of the timeline items. I'll just verbally go through that. This fall we have a classroom to boardroom process update for the board that would take place sometime in September. Ray would be coming and sharing an update on where we're at with the board. We also have school and department data needs analysis, theory of action, desired daily experiences. So remember those desired daily experiences are input from our students, family, and staff on what it is that they are desiring. We'll be taking those forward to the public in survey form over the course of the next coming weeks. And we're really trying as much as possible to make sure that we're getting those surveys out to historically underserved populations, that we're doing translation, we're doing paper copies for people. We're really trying to go as deep into that as we can. Also, in prelude to our conversation on the tribal consultation, we want to make sure that the tribe has an opportunity to read through those desired daily experiences and provide us some update as well. So that's very important to us. We'll also be working on our vision cards, our 3-year operational plan, and then wrapping things up in November and December with the board with that strategic plan, but more to come in September. Related to our tribal consultation, again, a pretty large team of us. I think there were probably 10 of us total at least from the district, including Chair Lofold, went to the Fond du Lac Tribal Center, and we met with the Tribal Council and Superintendent Murphy to have an opportunity for tribal consultation. And as you know, tribal consultation is much or more about listening as it is presenting. Opportunity to really listen to the questions and concerns of the tribe, as well as to take input as far as suggestions for the future moving forward. And one of the things that we've talked about, and this is seen as better practice and best practice by other school districts, is to meet more frequently with the tribe. The statute calls for kind of a one and done each year, but that isn't really serving us from a spirit of deeper collaboration. So we're going to be meeting quarterly with the tribe to discuss where we are with things and thinking of, for example, the concurrence, non-concurrence work. By meeting more frequently and having that on everybody's radar as we're moving forward, we're hopeful that the collaboration will result in better outcomes and concurrence in the district as we move forward. Also, we needed to make sure that we were assuring the tribe that they would have significant input as we worked on the strategic plan, that we're thinking of underserved populations, our BIPOC students and our American Indian students, making sure that the needs of those students, as well as the voices of parents, students, and staff members who are representative of those groups are heard loud and clear. And our next meeting, it's quarterly, but it's a little later just because of scheduling on scheduling needs that they have. But December 6th is our meeting date.
And with that, I just want to thank Superintendent Magus for, inviting me. The expectation is, I think, that a board representative will be there, but sometimes that might not always happen. So I want to thank that, him for making sure I was invited, but with that, I'd also like to say that December 6th, I think it would really be a benefit for other board members as well, so I could step back and let someone else, or I could go and I'd sit kind of in the back. I was right up there at the front table with our leaders, engaged in listening and sharing. And so with the permission of Superintendent Magus and Assistant Superintendent Bonds, I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna ask any one of you to go, but I think it would be a really good idea to have another school board member go. I think you'll bring more experience and lens than even I could today, and then bringing it back to us is also really important, so. We'll make sure, everyone should put December 6th. It was about a 2-hour meeting, and one of the things I think you have to allow time. I don't think it's something you just want to say, this is the timeline. I think you have to be there and engaged for as long as the conversation is meaningful to all of them, so. That's fine, thank you. It was good opportunity.
I appreciate it. And before I go into the final item, I did promise pork chop and property agreement. The
Can
Lowell.
I ask one quick question?
Oh, sure, of course.
I'm appreciative of, you, the assistant superintendent, the district, bringing the, for some tribal consultation with the concurrence, non-concurrence. I think this is something year after year after year we have been seeing, so I'm appreciative that was.
Thank you.
That was brought, because I think the lens and the help that the tribe can give, so that we can be in concurrence at some point.
And that was part of what we discussed during the tribal consultation too, that if it's good to have aspirational goals, but if the goals in the concurrence, non-concurrence report are completely aspirational and not necessarily fully attainable in a year, then we're set up to be in non-concurrence. I did point out that we have made progress each year, but I also pointed out that we haven't made the progress we hope to. That over the course of the past 2 years, I think that there were many things, including our internal operational plan, that many things within that plan that were paused and not tended to in as greater detail as they should be. But it's our intention to make sure that we're not over-promising and under-delivering, but we're promising and keeping our promises.
Thank you, I'm very appreciative of that.
Thank you. Regarding the pork chop, that was in the news with the Lowell traffic situation. It appears that the county will be putting in a right turn only out of Lowell. Within a pork chop, if you don't know, is for those who are new, is a basically like a raised cement area that kind of looks like the shape of a pork chop that keeps people from going the way they want to go anyway. So if you're coming in wanting to turn left, but coming to that pork chop, you would have to drive over, and it would not be convenient. I like terminology, so it's interesting. But the right turn will increase safety and hopefully increase the speed of people being able to come in and out with drop-off. And so we're hopeful that that's going to be an improvement to that long-standing Lowell traffic situation that we've had. And then property agreement, we did, as you know, from we had a closed session, and then we came back into open session and voted to approve the entering into a property agreement with Chester Creek Development that will be doing the development for and purchase of the property on the hill for Central High School. We also know that there are a number of people that are interested in some of the items and artifacts that are still within the school, and we're working to try and find what is the right balance there as far as we're able to provide those things. And we did talk to there was concern that maybe the items would have significant cost, and the demolition crew might want to take that cost out of the, or increase the amount that we're paying if it was of value to them. But they agreed that we could potentially offer many of those things, but then the question is, what skilled labor is needed to physically remove those items from the site. One item that is kind of special to the group, but presents some interesting challenges, is the Trojan welcome sign as you're coming up the hill, the big stone sign, because that actually has a foundation into the ground, And because it has a foundation into the ground, once we entered into a property agreement, it is considered part of the real estate. However, it very well may not have deep significant value to the developer, and we could see what we can do there. So if you're getting any questions related to those items, we're working behind the scenes to see what we can do. We also wanted to make sure if we could have maybe some sort of farewell night for the property as well. I know that there were some things that occurred during the closure originally to, have focus on the symbolic closure. Director Severance, our human resources director, is a Central grad and has offered to help assist in some of the planning, as she, provided that pending board approval, she will also be supervising facilities as well as human resources, and so that falls within her view as well as her previous academic alumni status. But
Well,
go ahead.
I was just gonna butt in and just, sometimes I don't mean to always sound like we always have to thank our administrators and, but Superintendent Magus met on I think it was a Saturday morning when it surfaced through some Facebook posts and for the advertisement that Nordic Auction did. There was some, concerned citizens of Central that, had some real questions, and I just thought it was really heartwarming for our superintendent to take that on and go up on the campus and talk with them and listen to them, and, and I just think that's really cool that you would do that.
We also had the alarm shut off so that, because we have military grade cameras up there now that that detect the difference between an animal and a human. And if there are humans up there, it announces something to the effect of, you're being recorded, the police are being called, leave now. So if there are people listening that are thinking about going up there when they shouldn't, please give us a call so that we can arrange safe passage. And then finally, the Unity in the Community Back to School celebration. And I can pass one of these posters that our illustrious communication officer, Ms. Willens, put together. We also have stickers. There are some back there too for audience members who might not have gotten one, but basically the intention of this work is to be a unifying back to school event. It's going to take place at Bayfront on Monday, August 29th from 4 to 7. It's not a requirement that anybody come. Some people are wondering if they're, is it required? Are they going to get paid? It's meant as more of a fun celebration opportunity. We are going to have entertainment, food trucks, school-related vendors. We're going to have guest speakers. We're going to have the backpack distribution. And I think we have close to 40 or over 40 various booths from different community organizations. So 40 plus people who will be sharing information and representing their support for the school district. Also, the Chamber of Commerce is sending out the request for donations and has donated themselves, as well as Essentia and several others, Krause Anderson, they've all donated. And so much of the cost will be defrayed through donation. So we're really excited about the possibilities, and one of us, me, is going to be in the dunk tank, but maybe we could convince Mr. Bonds to leave the grill for a brief period to join the dunk tank as well, but we'll see.
I would
Any
ask,
board members too?
Yes.
I would ask that any public member be kind in their throws
Yeah.
and aim for the target and not the person.
Do not aim for my face.
But this is a chance for anyone to take some healthy frustration out or celebrate either way. And it's a reason in and of itself to come and show up and have a good time.
And we do have a form where people can sign up, various organizations can sign up to have a booth, as well as opportunities for volunteering if people are interested in helping out. We appreciate the board taking part if interested and able, but we also understand that there are some that have conflicts too.
And if I can add just two other things, our HR department will be there as well with a table,
Yes.
because we are actively in search of employees, especially in the areas of cooks, our pair positions. We also have a number of our building custodial positions available. So please come out, and if you are interested in working with us, please come prepared to fill out an application, as well as there's other organizations that potentially will have opportunities for employment as well.
Thank you.
So with those comments, are you asking that this is for the community and not necessarily just for Duluth school families?
The primary target is our families. It's a celebration of our schools and so it's for families, our school staff, and of course, community members are welcome, but it is, the primary target is for our students and families.
I just really appreciate knowing that you're not gonna be turned away if you don't have a kid in our schools, kind of thing, and just to, be able to come and learn about our district and showing off the talents of our kids and performances and things, I think is extremely valuable for anyone that even wants to know anything about what we do and how we do it, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you, and just please look for additional information on various social media sites. We're gonna continue to promote the event and have a lot of other additional information, such as how to access transportation for families who may need transportation. So we have come up with several hubs for transportation that we are required, if they're gonna take advantage of, that students come with an adult. So adults have to be with students if they take advantage of the transportation hubs that are being set up as well. So just look for additional communication ongoing over the next few weeks.
Is there gonna be a big yellow bus there?
We're hoping.
Yeah, we're hoping to have a big yellow bus.
Walk through and
Yeah,
check out.
excellent.
I also want to say thanks to Ms. Wellens, our communications officer, who's done a lot of work on this, the whole team did, and especially to Mr. Bonds when he brought this up as an idea. A couple of months ago, I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna be so busy, how are we gonna make something like this happen? But it's kind of like the field of dreams, where there was an idea and suddenly we've got 40 plus booths and we're at Bayfront and we've got all kinds of things going on. So thank you for your vision and enthusiasm for this. Sorry, I was just distracted by Chichen Itza.
Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Okay, so, thank you. Any other questions of Superintendent Megan? I appreciate it. So just on 9C, or 8C is actually the schedule of meetings and events, and, listening to Superintendent Magus's report, it looks like, there might be a need for you thought it might be a session on September 8th.
So I think we could add it to September 8th.
Yeah.
We do have several different contracts and potential hires that we may need to. There might be a need for addition. Previously, my previous experience in general, we try to get contracts passed as quickly as possible before people are actually starting in the role. We have had some past practice here of letting people start and then approving at the next meeting. But I also want to be respectful of the board's decision-making power that having somebody start in a role before you voted on it, I want to be respectful of that as well. So we want to keep it as close as possible. So I'd say September 8th for the SRO agreement and contract additions. But if there are multiple high-need things moving forward, such as their principalship for Myers-Wilkins, if there are additional things added, we might ask for a quick special board meeting between now and the end of August. I think August is kind of a hard month where we sometimes have some of those things creep in.
And again, and we understand that, and I'm sure the board members are really supportive and sensitive to the idea that there are some things we really would like to give you permission to go forward, and that might mean a special meeting for us, but we also know that it's a busy time for board members, so as long as we have a quorum, I don't want board members to feel like, we're making, that's an expectation. It's not. we understand both sides, that they might need a special meeting, and we also have travel plans or our own parenting needs that, at the beginning of school year gets hectic. So, you know, we'll just know that, there might be something that needs a special meeting, but we're hoping that, our next board meeting is September 8th, and it's a policy meeting at 3:30 and a, committee of the whole meeting at 4:30, and a special meeting at some point for contract review, if that's the date we hold to in the meantime.
Thank you.
Maybe if this is more directed at, Director Severance, is there any legal ramifications for, say, us not approving the principal position, after, if we approve it after the school year starts, which obviously they would be making all sorts of decisions prior to the start of school. I mean, is there any legal problems that may arise between that, with them operating without board approval?
No, technically we would like to bring it ahead of time, but it's just part of that regular hiring report, so sometimes we miss the start. So their employment letter is really what solidifies their position, and then the board does approve it, but
That's really good to know. I just wanna make sure we're on the up and up and not putting ourselves in danger. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, we're gonna move on in our agenda to item 9, our report of standing committees, and our first report is the committee of the whole meeting, which was held on August 4th, and I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you. As linked inside of the agenda, you will see the presentations that were given. So if you want to find out what a pork chop is, there's actual pictures and linked inside of the presentation. So with that said, a presentation was provided regarding the low traffic issues and possible solutions. So we're really excited about the pilot that will occur there. We also had an update related to our YMCA opportunities for students. We entered into a contract with the YMCA to expand some options for students so that we can provide some after-school programming for those students. And summer programming for those students, so we're really excited about that. We also had some really great conversations related to the Conflict Resolution Center. It's a program that's being provided at Denfield. Our Head Start coordinator provided an update related to a corrective action plan that needed to be completed. We also had a presentation from our staff from Community Education, who provided an update related to some new programming. So as you are aware, every season you get a booklet sent home, and so the fall booklet has been completed. So we provided the board an update related to all of the new programming options for community ed and for families through community ed. We also provided an update related to the upcoming ALICE training that we provided to all of our leaders during next week. So I provided an update related to all of the safety. One of the things that we are doing is to make sure all of our administrators are trained in actor shooter training, and it's called ALICE. So that training will take place next week, and we'll have some additional follow-up related to other safety enhancements that we will be discussing with our administrators. And then we also discussed the concurrence and non-concurrence with the board, and it was an opportunity for the board to review the work and some of the recommendations that administration is moving forward, but ultimately the board is the one who approves those recommendations for us. And that was a very meaty agenda, but I want to thank the individuals who participated and gave all the presentations, and that concludes my update.
Any questions about the committee of the whole? Again, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, I think concurrence and non-concurrence now is on our consent agenda tonight as well. Right, okay, yeah. And I think that's the only thing that really moves that way, right? I think the others were presentations, informational. And again, that committee of the whole was August 4th, and so if you're interested in watching that as a community, listening to this meeting, to hear the opportunities that our district, especially led by Assistant Superintendent Bonds, is doing with our YMCA and the ability to use some of our ESSER funds to benefit our students, and especially our students that are, challenged because of the pandemic. And so that was really great to listen to the Denfeld principal, Tom Tuscan, share about their work with the Center for Conflict Resolution Center was, a solution to some of the issues, and a presentation to allow us to see those kind of solutions that they're engaged in at that site. And so it was really a good meeting, so thank you. And again, sometimes those committee of the whole items, certainly Assistant Superintendent Bonds and his Executive Secretary Kayla do an incredible job listening to our conversations here, but also with their ear towards what's going on in our district to bring forth agenda items that we feel really address and give board members what we're looking for. But if there's a board member that is thinking they would like to hear something on some project or some program or something going on, if you send that to Clerk Oswald or myself, we can always address it with Assistant Superintendent Bonds, and then they've got a nifty kind of agenda of committee of the whole, and they've plugged in certain things that have to be on there, and then there's room for other things. So just an encouragement to reach out to Clerk Oswald or myself with committee of the whole presentation ideas. And with that, we go to our next committee report, which is our HR and Business Finance. So Chair Eder.
Great, thank you, Chair Lopal. Just want to make note that this was, I guess, are we calling you Director? What are the Zoom, what do we call you now? Interim Executive Director. We're gonna have to tighten that up a little bit. So Interim Executive Director. Tunich, this was her inaugural meeting, so it was great to have her. So let's talk a little bit about what we did. We started out as usual with our departmental reports. We started with Human Resources, presented by Interim Director Severance for Human Resources and Operations, soon to be, right? We looked at our staffing changes for the month of July. We had an update on some internal workings. They're getting close to having human resources fully staffed. So that's pretty exciting. They had some benefit updates as well. And then moving on to our hiring updates, and of note, as of August 5th, they had 201 certified positions for the 2022-23 academic year, and of those postings as of the 5th, they had extended offers to 168. I'm gonna be optimistic and say we've probably extended more offers since then, and we'll hear about that next month. As on August 5th, we had 110 paraprofessional positions opened up for the 22-23 school year, and of those postings, we had extended offers to 80, and I'm positive we've extended more offers. So we are chipping away at those numbers, soon to be fully staffed. Moving on, for our contract negotiations, we have, I can never say this one, DUIA. That contract will be attached, and we will be voting on it at this meeting. We have one contract left, that's the National Conference of Firemen and Oilers. We went into mediation on the 20th. There was half of their negotiating team was not present, so we're gonna continue to go through that mediation process. There's a few things that we are working on settling, which is the field engineer position, vacation and sick time. So hopefully we will be seeing that contract, our last contract, come forward sometime in the near future. Moving on, we do not have an enrollment report this month. Those reports will resume October 2022 once we have our scholars back in our buildings and we can figure out how many of them we have. Next, we have our child nutrition departmental reports. As usual, our nutritional staff is working hard to produce summer meals. You can look attached to this meeting. You can see the numbers of students that we are offering breakfast and lunch to. the big concern is looking for people to work in our nutrition department and serve Aug scholars all their lunch and breakfasts and all the other things they need. We've switched from Bimbo's Bakery to Pan of Gold. I just had to bring that up because I like the name. And there's some other work being done as we transition back to paid meals for our students. Of note, I just wanted to bring that today it was announced by Governor, hold on, let me find it right here, sorry about that. Today it was announced by Governor Walz that we will have an additional 90,000 students will be signed up for free school meals. This is good news for us. They're doing a pilot project where they're automatically enrolling students who are on Medicaid to our free and reduced lunch. This is gonna help us make sure that we are getting the money that we need for those students, and we're also making sure that we can offer services to those students. So this is great. They're taking down some barriers and making sure students and families get access to what they need. All right, next we have the facility. Oh, of note for the nutrition, current lunch prices for elementary are $2.60 and for secondary they're $2.85. We propose to raise those prices for elementary to $2.70 and for secondary to $2.95. So that's of note for parents that we are going to be having some 10 cents additional charge to our meals for our students. Moving on to the facilities departmental report. Facilities are buzzing along, working really hard. The Denville clock tower work is doing well. Everything is moving along. Compton Park windows replacement are 3/4 done. They're looking great. The new Denville sped bathroom has begun and it will be finished in October, and our students will have access to that at Denville. That's going to be great. I believe that since the whole time we've been on the board, we're still working on PSS track lane 1 ponding remediation, but I believe now it's moving forward and hopefully someday we will resolve that. As for building operations, everything's going great. Summer cleaning is getting done. The buildings are looking great, but as of this departmental report, there are 17 vacancies in custodial operations, and we're all working hard to get that done. They're moving along on health, safety, and environmental management, smoke alarm and sprinkler inspections, Alice training, as Assistant Superintendent Bonds mentioned earlier. A chemical audit and our SDS updates are happening for the chemicals that we have in our buildings. Also doing some work to update our emergency management webpage, and also updating bloodborne pathogens and employee right to know. So we're getting quite a bit of work done. The technology report resumed this month, and you can go ahead and check that report on. It's attached to board book. Of note, in accordance with our new cybersecurity policy, our technology department is working hard to make sure that we are meeting all of our requirements for that insurance policy that will guarantee us good protection in the future. Our transportation report, basically our transportation department is really getting ready for our students to get back on the buses and be off to school come September. You can imagine how complex it is to have to think about where students picked up our routes and how to get them there in the quickest, safest way. There were 14 trips in July and 30 for August. That's so awesome to see. All right, so we have some recommended resolutions coming forward from HR Business. We have the DUIA contract is attached. We also have, we also have employment of school board members by the district. We have a resolution related to that. A resolution authorizing a development agreement with DETA to preserve the opportunity for future creation of a TIF redevelopment district, and then also a resolution to accept donations to the Duluth Public Schools. Just want to know that that's on page 14 of this report, and you can look at all the amazing people who donate to the Duluth Public Schools. In the consent agenda, we are setting forward an HR staffing report with a job description for our Executive Director of Finance and Business Services. Also, a job description for the Executive Director of Human Resources and Operations. Approval of individual interim contracts for Executive Director of Finance and Business Services. Simone Zunich, approval of an individual interim contract for Executive Director of Human Resources and Operations, Director Severance. We also have our finance report is going to start again October. As of right now, we are looking after our audit is done. Could you just give us a quick, the audit happens?
Sure. The audit is starting, they'll be on site tomorrow. For the rest of the week, they'll be on site this week, a week in September and a week in October, and doing their what they call field work, and then they'll be working on audit through November. It has to be done by November 30th, and then we will make a presentation to them in December. So we are, busy with all of that and sending them documents and verifying numbers.
So we'll have our financial report back in October once we've had our audit done. Thank you. We also are, what am I doing? So on the consent agenda, we have approval of interim executive director of human resources and operations, Teresa Severance, to approve HR invoices not to exceed $25,000. This is an increase from previous, which was 5. Approval of Assistant Superintendent Anthony Bonds to approve the TLE curriculum invoices and purchases not to exceed $50,000. This is increased from 25. Approval of Interim Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Simone to approve and sign contracts not to exceed $100,000. This is an increase from $1,000. This big jump in approval is because Executive Director has moved up from a position to where she needs to be able to have the capacity to approve those contracts. We have no fundraisers, we had no bids, RFPs, and quotes. We had some contracts, change orders, and leases. We had a contract with the Duluth Area Family YMCA proposal for ISD 709 ESSER funds. Questions or wanting to learn more about that, you can refer back to the committee of the whole meeting and look at that fantastic presentation put together by Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Can you remind the gentleman from the Y? Jeremy. We have a lease with Northwoods Merritt Creek for 2022 to 2025. And as of the City of Duluth School Resource Officer contract, that contract will most likely come before the board September 8th after a committee of the whole meeting. Lastly, we had some miscellaneous information and as far as district property updates, expenditures, no costs, and revenue contracts, and then finally, grant applications. And that concludes the HR Business Services meeting summary. What did I miss?
No. I just wanted to add, just for the sake of the public and the rest of the board related to those new positions that I explained in the board updates that those were part of a restructuring. When we posted for the CFO position, the candidate pool was not what we hoped it would be, as it is in almost all CFO searches in the state and country right now. This reallocates some of the oversight of facilities to Teresa Severance, so she will be in that dual role, as well as to Simone Zunich, who was our number 2 person, but a number 1 in a previous district. She's always number 1 with us, though. And so basically what this does is it does reduce our administrative costs at this point quite significantly by roughly $100,000. So I think that'll have positive impact. And then also Mr. Bonds, our assistant superintendent, will be supervising technology, and that's how it is structured in some other places. I don't mean to belabor an ad, but I just wanted to make sure in case anybody in the public was wondering. And also sometimes when people see position enhancements, they're wondering like, oh, where's this coming from? But it's actually coming from combining positions and reducing positions rather than adding to.
And I think it speaks to the depth of talent in our administrative team that we can just go into our bench to fill these positions. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
added this to 9B, so did we want to just, keep this,
Want me to speak to it?
sure.
Thank you for allowing this to be added to the agenda at late notice, I appreciate that. The job description you'll see before you is the facilities business manager. It is a new description. This is a manager that would help support facilities, particularly Dave Spooner's office with his supervisors and assistant manager. There currently was a clerical doing some of this work, and as she has left for another position, I think it was recognized that that was a lot more than really was being responsible in that position than was under the clerical. And as looking at how do we replace that position, it was really imperative that we had something that was more specific to the extent of work that is really needed to make that facilities office run. It's modeled quite a bit off of our SPED business manager position, obviously with a different scope of work, but very similar in the context of really manages that office, ensures that all of our contracts are going through properly, ensures that all of our payrolls with contractors are being verified, and amongst so many other things that keeps that facilities and operations office running. So we ask for your approval of this. We have approved it with of our appropriate bargaining agreement, so we have a pay negotiated that will go along with it.
And so we have not posted this position yet?
No.
But it's vacant, that job is vacant right
It
now?
is vacant. The previous employee is still working kind of part-time for us on weekends, just to make sure that there's a fluid transition. There is a part-time person within that office that's helping to assist, but it's not quite enough to get that job completed on a regular basis.
And hence why maybe we were adding it tonight, so that
Yes.
we can properly put it out as a job opening for our
Yes.
community.
Can you tell me like the difference in pay grade it's going from and to? I mean, is there a significant wage difference from what it was previously?
I can let you know. I don't have that in front of me, but it is gonna be a pay grade 6 within the contract, the non-certified business, and it is currently an executive assistant within the clerical. And again, that scope of work is really outside of the job description of executive assistant, and it wasn't really recognized until after that work needed to be done by other people, how much work was really responsible in that role.
Well, and I ask for various reasons, but one is to advertise the job if it's, going to be worth their while, worth people's while to apply, because they're gonna get paid well and be part of a fantastic district, so I hope we can get as many qualified applicants to choose.
Any other questions? Thank you, so then,
I have a question, I have an addition to, Member Eater's report, in that I had a follow-up, email about, meal prices for adults. Buying, because, adults buy lunch too, and you can buy breakfast too, I forget about that. And so many thanks to, Business Service Coordinator Brett Menzing, reaching out to our, Child Nutrition Program person, Sheila Oak, who responded that the USDA sets those prices, and it is, $2.25 to have our tasty lunches, especially on Cinnamon Roll Wednesday if those still occur, and lunches will be $4.95, so I hope we give our child nutrition and cafeteria workers a lot of nickels for change.
Thank you, Alana.
I can also comment today that I did drive by Denfeld today, and saw the ginormous, mobile crane in the small parking lot, lifting things up to the clock tower, and so progress is happening, and I just wanna ensure people that it's rebuilding, not tearing down, and not cause a huge panic among people, but it was really kind of symbolic, because as I was driving by and I saw this crane doing work, I saw our DTA labeled bus sitting right in front of Denfeld too, and I wish I could have pulled over and taken a picture, but it just screamed, our district is making improvements and doing well, so.
I can attest to that because the office that I have, because I'm the coach at Denfeld, is right there, right underneath the clock tower, so there's just a lot of so needless to say, I moved to the media center this week when we're working, but yeah, so there is work going on, the bathrooms too that are being updated, is being worked on, so lots of get ready to school stuff, so thank you for your report. That brings us to the committee, the policy committee, and Chair Lafreniere.
Thank you. We met August 4th, and thank you, Member Sanholm and Member Sadowski for being there with us. We had no policies for first reading, policy for second reading, policy 208. That's development, adoption, and implementation of policies, and policy 209, code of ethics. Also, just a reminder, all of this will be on our consent agenda later on. And then we discussed policies for immediate adoption, and I'll highlight what these policies are, but Superintendent Magus, if you want to just share kind of the recommendation for the immediate adoption policies. Thank you.
Sure. So there were a few changes in law recently that impacted policies, and MSBA they needed to take some time to craft those policies, but they wanted to make sure that they moved forward relatively quickly so that people had them in place for the beginning of the school year. And the policies, the three that are, or the three areas rather that are most impacted, one was the change in legislation related to marijuana, THC edibles, and making sure that our policies are outlining that students and staff can't be under the influence of those substances while they're at work, and basically outlining those changes. There was also a data privacy issue that came up related to changes in ensuring that third-party vendors are not selling data of our students. I think that's really important, but there are also systems that we have that use student data that we need to make sure that the parents are aware of what we're using and when we're using it, so that that they know if their data were to be sold, what that would mean. But it is not our intention we don't purposely sell data. Occasionally third-party vendors do that with apps and things that people are signing up for, so it's just a protection for our students in that regard. And then the third was the conflict of interest for school board members. I think this is partly because of the huge increase in staffing needs that basically we didn't want to hinder ourselves related to potential individuals who might be interested in substituting or serving in different capacities, driving bus or whatever it may be. So there's an increase from 8,000 to 20,000 in policy. So it's recommended that we bring forward those changes. We do know that there's some work within the teaching and learning department related to that data and technology piece. So there's likely to be revision coming forward, but it was better to get a general policy in the books and then tweak it rather than start the year without a policy.
Great, thank you. And again, all of these policies, the School Board Association, our School Board Association, and MASA, the Superintendent Association, they review, they have legal departments that go over the legal references and they cross-reference it. And often, again, the 1st of August, we, after the legislative session has been completed in May or June, then they do crunch time work for us and then bring policies forward like this. Sometimes for immediate adoption, other times just in our normal cycle of adoption. So we discussed policy 210, again, the conflict of interest for school board members, and that replaces our current policy 8045. The second one, policy 416, drug and alcohol testing, that replaces our current policy 4035 and 4050. And then policy 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school, that replaces policy 4036. And then the last one, policy 524, internet acceptable use and safety policy, That's replacing policy 3187. And again, that'll be in the consent agenda. The next item we discussed was more for a review, policy 404, employment background checks. And thank you, HR Director Severance, for just kind of updating us on the new processes in place for online background checks. That'll help in terms of our hiring and just being more efficient. And I do encourage people to read through the policy 404. We did adopt it in 2019, so it's not up for review for another year. But we just wanted to kind of in a timely way look at it as we begin the school year and make sure all board members know what our background check policy is. And then lastly, regulations, 524R, internet regulations, and this is really replacing the number 3187R. So we're just renumbering it. So that is our policy committee, and again, all of that will be on the consent agenda. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions regarding the policy on policies.
Yeah.
Especially under section 5, items B and D. The item I'm curious about and would like an explanation of is it says a copy of the school district policies shall be placed in the office of each school attendance center and in the central school district office. So I'm assuming since we don't necessarily have school attendance centers, that every school building is now going to be required to have a copy of the policies in their office? Is that the way that we're gonna interpret that?
Yes, I think so.
And are those
I think,
physical
and
copies?
I think every school would have access to the electronic copies.
Yeah.
But I think making sure, with policy changes happening so quickly, I don't know if physical copies are very productive anymore, because you keep a binder and 3 weeks later, something's needing to be updated.
So, would it be worthwhile if I offer an amendment to this to insert an electronic copy rather than just having it blank, so that there's no ambiguity of people expecting it to be physical copies there?
I think,
Would that make sense or make it, be agreeable?
I think that would be a great suggestion for us to consider.
Well, then, I guess I will make that motion, if somebody would like to second it, that we insert, an electronic copy of the school district's policies shall be in the office.
And I don't know if we need to, I mean, I
Well,
think.
there's a motion right now, so is there a second? Because if there isn't a second, we don't have to discuss it.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
All I was gonna say, and maybe Patty, you can help me, but I think if we're making kind of a minor word addition, does it need to, do we need a motion on it?
Policy.
Well, regardless.
To be clean.
Member Oswald, could you repeat the section?
It's section 5B, letter B as in boy.
Okay, thank you.
Physical copies will be placed in each school, office of each school attendance center.
And since we don't have school attendance center, maybe we should just say office and strike out the school attendance center part?
Or would you just say that policies are available to all community and school and staff electronically? It's not gonna,
And at request could be provided in paper copy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to
I mean-
put it, Superintendent Magus.
If that's what we wanna do, I'm fine with that. Although that doesn't relate really to my, well, that would change my motion, that's on the floor. I was just trying to just stick with clean cut insertions rather than rewriting the whole thing, but, if we want to amend my amendment, or amend my motion, I guess somebody has to spell that out for me again, because I gotta write it down.
Would you like me to offer up an amendment to your motion
Yes, please.
to alter the language in section, Superintendent Bonds, can you help me with that, in section 5B to Superintendent Magus, can you say what you said?
I was suggesting we say, each school board member and members of the public shall have access to school board or school district policies in electronic form and can be provided paper copies upon request.
There is
My question is, did executive assistant Kat get that written down?
I can rewatch it on.
So can I, so I'm wondering exactly how thorough I need to be.
Yeah, I got most of it and I'll rewatch it.
Okay, all right, so I'll just record the who motions and seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I need a second on the amendment?
Yes. Second. And I will, or it could just be a friendly amendment and I'll accept that, yes.
So,
Make it easy.
so first of all, we're going to, vote on the friendly amendment, with the rewording, and then we'll take and vote on the whole amendment, as amended. So, right now, all those in favor of voting for the amended amendment, including the words of policies will be electronic and a paper copy provided, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment to the amendment passes. Now we're gonna vote on just the amendment as now amended, and that is that we all agree that in 5B, the policy will be added about electronic and paper copy. So all those in favor of the amended amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And, my other question about the same, the same paragraph is are we assuming that people and members of the community can enter an office and request access to the policies via an electronic means, even though there's no public computer available for public use in a school?
I mean, I'm sure if a family requested, they'd figure out in the library or some way to.
Yeah, probably, call, have a copy
So-
of.
But, you know, there's obvious issues about, you know, allowing, you know, community members in during the school day, and that's when it would normally occur, because it would have to be during office hours, and those computers could be in use, and not every school has a computer lab anymore, and there's a laundry list of issues here, and so I'm just curious
Yeah,
if this is
kind of.
something that absolutely needs to be passed tonight until those issues are worked out, or if the language can be there, or if we pass it, but those details worked out later.
Yeah,
I'm unsure.
and I'm thinking about in general, we have a customer service perspective, and if somebody came to any of our offices and said, what's your policy related to, you know, data privacy practices, that we would willingly look that up and provide it.
And is that included in our office staff's?
Job description?
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I would say,
And do they even know how to do that? But, you know, I mean,
look up work
they do so
policy.
many.
I think most of
Well,
our
they did, the principal.
clerical
would.
staff would know how to do
Administrators
it,
should.
administrators should.
Yeah.
And I would want, as an administrator myself and previous building administrator, if anybody asked me what the policy was, I would either find it myself or ask a member of upper administration to help explain what our policy was if I was unclear myself. So I think, I'm not sure if there's a way that we want to describe it within policy, or if that starts to become more procedure. But
I'm wondering, because all of our policies are on our website, if there is just some, and where you go to the website to the policies, if we could also just make a notation or of a procedure, if you'd like copies, you know, do this.
Sure.
If we can do it more procedurally that way. And then it feels like, working with our principals to make sure they're clear as well on where the policies are, and I think they know, and just some guidance if they were to get a request at the school site.
And I think, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say that, you know, not everyone has access to an electronic, you know, means to access the policies either, and I am also, you know, keeping in mind, our past histories of having, you know, a few community individuals that may come in and want to, you know, figure out and read all of those policies right then and there and take up a majority of a staff person's time during a day regarding some issue or something like that. So there's a lot of gray area here that I don't know is spelled out good enough in this policy, but yeah. That just.
Super respectful.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what anybody's request may be on a wide variety of things. Somebody might come in and wanna know about our pool usage, and that might require a long time, but I know our communication officer, Ms. Wellens, always has an eye for equity and trying to make sure that underserved individuals who might have less access have access. So I think if we start thinking about how would we want to ensure, if most things are online, if there is a way, you know, maybe we do print a copy once a year. I would just hate for us to say we had an updated copy of all of our policies, knowing how quickly we're changing policies with all the work going on, to make sure that it's kept up to date in physical paper form. I can pretty much guarantee it's not gonna be uniform.
Well, many of us on the board here, when we got elected, received that 2.5, 3-inch big binder of paper copies, and I was very thankful when we could recycle those.
I think too, we could, given and this is another advantage for us to be involved in organizations like MSBA and AMSD, we can ask during some of those sessions, are people still keeping paper copies in each of their offices, or are there other ways that they're executing with this? Because I appreciate the spirit of your request. You're not trying to be a fly in the ointment. You're just trying to make sure that if people don't have internet access and access to computers, that they can still know what our policies are, and I think we can work to execute that.
And I'm very appreciative of that, and I don't know if that needs to be reflected in language or not, and that's up to the committee, obviously.
It's a good MSBA question too.
And so my other question revolves around actually putting the recommendation from MSBA has always been that the school board reviews policies at least once every 3 years, and now it's actually in policy in 5D. And so knowing that, a significant portion of our policies are older than 3 years, I question our ability to meet that demand in policy until all of our policies have been updated. So I think that's a great aspiration for us at this moment, and we're working hard towards it. But we've been working hard towards it my entire time on the board, and so I don't want people to accuse us of not following our own policy with that in there. Whether or not we want to strike it is up to the board, and up to each. But I would favor removing that statement altogether, just because of the state of our policies until they are, or adding a clarifier language in there, such as, once a policy has been updated to current terms, then it'll be reviewed every 3 years. I think that would be a better way for certain individuals to hold us accountable to change, but yet not start pointing fingers at us that we aren't taking time to update our policies every 3 years. Yeah, there's some policies that exist that are from 1973. So, I'm sure many of us are aware.
Well, maybe I can make a recommendation. This seems like a discussion that our policy committee should have, and so this is our second reading. We can bring it back to the policy committee to have this discussion and on that particular topic, and allow us to do some research as well if we think it makes sense, and then we can bring it back for recommendation. So thank you. We could hold off on that if you'd like.
Well, if you think it's prudent, I would support that we pull this from the consent agenda and postpone it for a month.
And when I introduce the consent agenda, then pull it off at that point?
I guess, yes.
I would also remind board members so that, we do 2 readings of it. We have a policy committee that's also, you can listen to, and we appreciate any feedback in between the 2 readings. And in this case, this was 3 kind of a month in there because we had it on the agenda for our retreat in July as well. So appreciate the discussion, but you know, we'll bring this back if that is what the board wants.
Second, sorry, I'm a little fuzzy right now. There is a final reading though, right?
Yeah.
So could we have it move forward, but have the discussion and then change it in the final reading?
Well, this is the second reading, so this
Oh,
is,
sorry.
yeah, this is where it would be approved.
Could,
Just a point of clarification on that one, or the 3-year deal from the policy committee, I just would like, I know that there's outdated policies, but I sometimes think they're just outdated and we're removing them, so are we on good track for moving through policies every 3 years? Does that, for the policy committee, does that,
I
Are
think
you
that
concerned
even
about that?
within our board, work plan, we talked about trying to do it on a 4-year basis, given where we're at. So I do see some concerns with putting it in policy, saying we're gonna do it in 3. Maybe I don't know, if we wanted to make if one of the members wanted to make a recommendation, we could change it to the school board shall review policies on a regular and periodic basis, and the superintendent shall be responsible for developing a system of periodic review addressing addressing the policies, a set number of policies annually or something. So if we take out the 3-year language, I think that would probably satisfy everyone.
I have a question on review, because if a policy is looked at by the policy committee or the chair of the policy committee, and it's deemed that this isn't something that needs to be addressed or formally addressed in the policy committee, does that count as a review? I mean, you know, I think the policy that we're pulling forward to address formally require change. So, I mean, you've probably got a lot of policies there that don't require any change, even every 3 years or every 4 years or whatever. So, does again, just the fact that, you know, someone on the board or on the policy committee, the chair of the policy committee, has looked through these policies and has said, this is okay, we don't need to address that one right now, but we're pulling out the ones that we feel are more appropriate to and more urgently need attention. I mean, so again, you see what I'm trying to say here. What does review mean? You know, is it a formal review by the policy committee and then making a change and adopted by the board? Or are we still reviewing it if we just looked at it and said, oh, we don't need to do anything there?
At the bottom of every policy is a list of every time it's been looked at and listed as updated and that sort of thing. Regardless, your argument is that this policy is saying that you will review it and it will be looked at every 3 years and so even those that are, you know.
So if it does require update, you know, and
It doesn't require updating, but it still needs to be reviewed, and how do you document that? That's a good question.
I mean, are you gonna go through a first reading and a second reading if you're not updating it and changing it?
You wouldn't have to if there's no changes, you can pass it in one reading, because there's no substantive changes.
But the policy says review, not pass, right? So review really could be just like,
the policy committee
the
reviewed it?
policy
and
committee could review it.
And then date it as reviewed and. Right?
It's very much a bookkeeping issue, I think, yeah.
Yeah. I think, that's a spreadsheet question, we could.
Is it the annual adoption of our policies indicates that there's been a reading or review of them?
Well, there's certain policies that I think we all are aware are required that are adopted annually, and those, you know, we work to do. And then there might be new policies or changes because of state regulations or the state law changes. So, you know, those generally come to us by August 1st. So.
If Member Lockwood, Kemp, you've been the chair of the policy committee since it started, and so the committee has reviewed a tremendous.
Yeah.
So what is your suggestion as chair in the history that you've looked at in this committee when it comes to reviewing policies? What have you found to be best?
Well, I think, this committee just started in June of 2020, which was also COVID and a new superintendent in that. So I think we really are getting into our groove better since this past year, where we just really created a calendar of working through the different the sections of the policies. So I think we're moving forward in a good way now that we have the system in place and the staffing in place to help us do that.
And I would point out that we have hundreds of policies.
Yeah.
Even if we're aggressive, which we've been trying to be, even if we did 5 a month for 10 months, that's only 50 policies a year that we can even get through. So I think we just need to consider that, and maybe we modify the language to something that's realistic. 3 years seems pretty aggressive if it's going to be a true reading of all of those policies and a true adoption, because that would be truly aggressive and time consuming on staff as well.
Very much so.
And I think that a suggestion might be that when a policy is reviewed and if you review many of them, that there's just some resolution that says, these policies were reviewed and found acceptable, and just list the policy numbers and be done. And that's kind of documentation of how they could be reviewed but not changed. But I think this discussion should happen at a committee level. I don't need to harp on it anymore at a meeting, so.
Does that conclude your report?
Yep.
Okay. So that brings us to our agenda item number 10, which is general board committee updates. And that's just an opportunity for any of us that have attended. We all sit on various committees that the board chair appoints to you at the beginning of January, and just if there's any. Seeing none,
Oh, I can go.
okay.
I was waiting to see if anyone else was gonna go. I don't have too much, but I attended the Parks and Rec, commission meeting last week. They have been working on I have my little folder here, but their essential spaces strategic plan, which was really great. I would recommend for everyone to check it out. They've worked a lot on it. They've, given a public commitment to equitable spending across the district and their parks, which is great. And they're going to be starting up some new collaborations with Spirit Valley and Gary and Duluth, kind of similar to how Hartley Nature Preserve operates. So those will be really good opportunities for our youth who live in those areas. So
Thank you. See no other reports, that will move us to our consent agenda. And so if you take a look at our consent agenda. Is this where we read resolution? Oh, that's under the next one. So on our consent agenda are our minutes, and then you can look down everything that probably was discussed in committee are on our consent agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
second.
And so any discussion on the consent agenda? Changes, or anybody want to pull something off?
The policy that we were just discussing, I'm looking and I'm not finding it on there. Is it on there?
It would be policy 208 under C.
Yeah, I would.
2A.
I would make a motion that we remove that for a month.
Is there a second to Member Oswald's desire to pull policy 208A?
I'll second.
Okay,
I think it'd be good to look at it again.
all those in favor of pulling policy 208, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Policy carries 6-1. And so now I'm looking for a vote on the consent agenda as we see it. Unless there's anybody else that wants to pull something, you can either pull something off or pull it for a further discussion.
Chair Local, I have a question. When we were talking about earlier, the job description, do we need to vote on that, or are we adding it, are we doing that as a separate vote, or are we adding it to the consent agenda?
We're adding it to the consent agenda. So note that too as well, that the classification description that was provided by Director Severance on the facilities business manager is now going to be a part of our HR business finance consent agenda. So seeing no other discussion on the consent agenda, we've already voted on pulling policy 208. Now I'm asking for a motion to approve consent agenda.
We already have the motion.
Oh, we do have the motion.
So now,
We're looking for a
so
vote.
now you vote on the consent agenda as amended.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to now, on our agenda, the resolutions from committee reports. And so I'm asking, I think, we've got those resolutions in our folders. And the first one is the HR-8-22-3905, and it is a resolution, the Duluth District-wide Instructional Administrators Association Bargaining Agreement, resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the collective bargaining agreement between Independent School District 709 and Duluth District-wide Instructional Administrators Association Bargaining Agreement, a summary of which is in the hands of all school board members, be approved and adopted for the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2023, inclusive, and that the chairperson and clerk of the school board hereby authorized to execute said agreement on behalf of the school district. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Loeffler Kemp is the second. All those in favor of this resolution, do we have to do a roll call vote on these?
We should, but you don't have to.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Our following resolution is on Member Loeffler Kemp.
This is our resolution HR 822-3912, resolution employment of a school board member by the district. Whereas the school board member below are or will be employed by the Duluth Public Schools during their service as a school board member. And whereas Minnesota statute 123B.195, board members' rights to employment requires that the member receive majority approval by the school board to be initially employed or to continue in employment at a meeting at which all board members are present. And whereas Minnesota statute 123B.195, board members' right to employment states that the employment relationship will not exceed $20,000 in a fiscal year, excluding compensation for being a school board member. Be it resolved that the school board authorize the employment of the following school board members as listed, not to exceed $20,000 in a fiscal year. Board member Jill Lofold, board member Alana Oswald, board member Paul Sadholm, for the time frame of July 2022 to June 2023. I move resolution HR 822-3912.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of this resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next motion is item C, and it is Member Zadowski.
I will move resolution B-8-22-3913, a resolution authorizing a development agreement with the Duluth Economic Development Authority regarding Central on the Hill property, proposed tax increment district. Whereas the school district in the process of selling the Central on the Hill property, and whereas the district administrator has been working with the Duluth Economic Development Authority, DEDA, to preserve the option for a purchaser of the Central on the Hill property to request at a future date the creation of a redevelopment tax increment district to potentially provide incentives to encourage the redevelopment of such property, and whereas DEDA officials and district administration have negotiated a development agreement, the form of which has been provided to the school board, the development agreement, for the purpose of preserving the opportunity to create such tax increment district at a future date and permitting the demolition of the Central High School building on the hill this fall. Now therefore be it resolved, School Board of Independent School District number 709 Duluth hereby approves the development agreement and authorizes the school board chair and the clerk to execute the development agreement and all other documents required for implementing the term and conditions of the development agreement.
So it's been moved, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of this resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 7-0. Our last resolution, Member Oswald will take.
Resolution on the acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals and organizations. It lists quite a few donations to Lester Park, Denfeld, Stowe, Laura MacArthur, Lincoln Park, Lowell East, and to our physical therapy department, which is often hidden from sight that people don't know we actually provide. So, and it varies in money amounts and in-kind donations. So I move this resolution B-8-22-3914.
Is there a second?
Second.
Member Eater seconds our resolution on donations. All those in favor say aye.
We have to roll call vote
Oh, we have to roll call vote this one.
As prescribed by state statute, resolutions about donations must be accepted via roll call vote. So Member Eater?
Yep.
Member Kirby?
Aye.
Member LaFourcade?
Yes.
Chair Lopez?
Yes.
I vote yes. Member Sadowski?
Yes.
Member Sandholm?
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you. That takes care of our resolutions from our committee reports. And so we're at number 13, special resolutions and action items. There are none. That brings us to 14, our questions or other announcements, reminders, updates, anything we don't feel we covered. I always wait for just a little bit, you know, that question.
I guess I would just like to wish our administrators and all of our staff a lot of luck and persistence and joy as the school year begins to start. It's crunch time for a lot of people, and I know that many educators nowadays get that little itch or the little bug of excitement planted in them and are ready to hit their classrooms running. So I just want to, wish everyone the best of luck in getting the job done and keeping our students at the center of everything we do. And knowing that this meeting, we won't have a next meeting until after school starts, unless we have a special meeting, so. And thank you to every employee and everyone that encourages our students to be the best that they can be.
Thank you. I second that support. So that brings us to 15. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Member Oswald adjourned, a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you to our community.
Thank you.
Thanks. How's that?